Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who probably would have gone pro if they had a father like them. Tonight, I'm interviewing William J. Burkhardt. Will is president of Six Doom Literary LLC. He's New Jersey born. He's an author of many genres since 2014. Currently out and available are his deathly anagrams. Books of deathly anagrams. They are a combination of science fiction, horror, and thrills. Thank you for joining me, Will.
Thanks for having me.
Will, tell me about the books of deadly anagrams or deathly anagrams. What are these all about?
Yeah, so when I first started out in 2014 and 2016, I kind of consider that my like college career, I guess. And I came to a point from about 2017-ish to about 2020 where I had my second child. I wasn't really sure if the author thing was gonna be in my future, but then I kind of wrote these five stories in quick succession, and they were all very kind of all over the place, but I for some reason they all just kind of felt like they had to be within this one project. And that's kind of just where it came from. There's no real meaning to the title or anything. It's just kind of something I came up with, but yeah, I'm kind of at the tail end of it now. And I'm kind of moving on to this, to the, I guess, the third era in my career. But yeah, it's just kind of a collection of stories that are kind of all over the place in between, about 20,000 words and 90,000. So there's something on there for everyone.
So you write short fiction novellas.
Yeah. I had to actually struggle to crank out something that was about 90,000 words. There's something about like 20 to 40,000 is just kind of that sweet spot for me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I want to hear more about that. Well, first of all, you've thrown me off because you're in your third era of being an author.
Yeah,
So
it's weird.
what does that mean? Tell me what is the first era of
So the
your
first
of your
era, this is yeah,
authorship?
the first era was kind of I mean, obviously the Amazon, the self-publishing thing was out then, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now. So in 2014, I was kind of out in the cold. And I ended up just paying essentially like a hybrid type publisher. I still had all of the rights to my own stuff, but it was essentially just I'm paying to have it printed. And that was exhausting, just having solely physical copies, planning these events. I was like, I'm not sure if I have what it takes for this. And then, yeah, like I said, with the book of Deathly Anagrams, it was just kind of this second phase where um, I was essentially coming into my own. I kind of got knocked down. I tried it. I wasn't sure. And I got back up. And now I'm in the third phase, which is kind of like, I don't think there's going to be a fourth because this is what I want now. I mean,
Yeah.
I do have a 9 to 5, but I'm pretty sure, after, being published 6 times, like I want to just be this. So third and final phase.
Oh, so is the plan to become a scrappy indie author of various genres?
Yeah, I've actually tried for quite some time trying to trying to like acquire like an agent, and that became almost a full-time job. It was exhausting, and I got close once, but it's just I'm at the point now where if something like that was to happen, it would have to be by some kind of act of the higher power. But yeah, I just kind of I like the power and the freedom of being, like my own. It's not as profitable as I would like, but yeah, I just it is kind of that. Yeah.
So you're also doing editing for people.
Yeah, that's just something that kind of fell into my lap. And then I tried it the first time, and the person was like, "Well, can I pay you?" It's like, "Well, yeah." It's like, "Sure." They're like, "How much?" It's like, "Oh, $300." Like, "Yeah, okay, cool." It's like, maybe I can make this happen again, you know? Um, and then yeah, the second and third time was just kind of like friends from socials, and it just snowballed into it's like, okay, I actually have to start kind of a company now because I'm sitting on a couple $1,000, and when the IRS finds out, they're gonna want to know why.
So let's get into this because in terms of I talked to Tim McKay, for example, last week, and he does sort of a similar thing where
Yeah,
he supports his writing work by doing editing as well. And
yeah,
I'm finding that this is a very consistent thing amongst authors. I happen to be uh, very fortunate that my day job is as a writer, although I don't get to pick what I write,
mm,
which is, I suppose none of us do.
yeah,
But from that perspective, there are a lot of people who supplement their writing by doing editing or instructing,
yeah,
or even agenting. I've seen.
yeah.
And so so you sort of fell into that. How do you advertise your services? How do you make sure that people know you're available to the public?
That's the craziest part about it. When I started the company officially in September of last year, I literally just put one thing out on TikTok and like a couple things out on my socials. And I mean, again, I don't know how this happened, but there's only been a 3-week period over the previous summer when I was not swamped in work. I haven't had to pay any advertising. I don't even have like a site, you know. I kind of have my socials, and I know like that's not very polished. Like, you know, everyone has a page, and
Yeah.
but every time I start thinking about having one, it's like, what am I going to put on there that is going to be worth, you know? Um, oh, sorry, I thought I lost you there.
No,
Um,
no, I'm
yeah,
listening.
yeah. So I kind of, I'm sure eventually I will get, like a real site, but it's it's strange when people ask me about this because I'm like, well, I didn't really pay for any advertising. I just, made myself apparent on my socials, and a person told a person told a person, and I haven't even had to advertise. It sounds crazy and almost
So,
arrogant, but I just haven't had to.
so what you're saying is that if a person wanted to enter the marketplace, for example, and do proofreading, editing, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
that there is a ton of work and that it is, in fact, not all that difficult to get it. So what do you, for the most part, end up editing? Is it novels? Is it short stories? What do they have you
Man,
hitting upon?
that's funny. It's literally all over the place. I did like an apocalypse type thing for my friend Molly. I have this one client, she's just sent me nonstop just like this fantasy romance stuff. Like, she's just constantly pounding me with these books. I did a book for my friend Matt. He's this Australian guy who wrote a paintball story. It's like, okay, the person who is my client now, she's actually her first language is Spanish, and she's
Oh,
being
okay.
published for like it's the strangest things, the kinds of clientele that are being thrown at me. It's hysterical. I think the most sizable thing I did was I did two space operas, and they were about like 150,000 a piece. So those were tough.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
those were tough. But normally, I mean, if somebody has something for me. I don't really have is a cutoff point. As soon as it hits like 100,000, I'm like, all right, yeah. But you um, yeah, it can be anywhere from 1,000 to like 150,000 words. And then like there's other things I'll offer too. Like I'm not like super great, but I mean I can throw stuff on Canva together for covers and stuff like that for I mean again just a very small price. Synopsis for the back of the books, you'd be surprised how many people struggle with those. I've had about 3 or 4 people pay me just to write synopses for their books. um and yeah, it's just there's
So,
always a way to
so
make.
here's the question. Are you willing to share what is would you say the monthly take from providing just freelance editorial services?
um Unfortunately, because I have to work a 9 to 5 yet, I can't convince my wife to let me quit my 9 to 5 job yet. But from September of when I started, a little before that, up until now, I'm I'm at about 10,000.
That's pretty
Uh,
good.
yeah, and honestly, it's not that I charge a lot. I actually charge in between like a third to a half of what normally is charged. And I understand that's kind of undercutting someone, but one, like I'm just starting out.
Yeah.
For me to charge, you know, $2,000 for 100,000 word manuscript, I'm not that guy. I can put something together for you, but that's kind of the draw because a lot of people like these people are coming to me because don't they can't afford the going rate, and that's not saying anything bad about them. The going rate is it's absurdly expensive, and again, that's not me saying the people who are charging that shouldn't be charging that. Like these are people who are far more educated than me. They've been at this longer. I mean, this just kind of fell into my lap,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I feel like I'm just really, really great at playing pretend, and I'm going to eventually be found out. But I had one of my clients who is actually a professor, like of English, and as soon as he hired me, I'm like, oh man, like he's gonna sniff me out as someone who's not, as. But he was one of the most satisfied clients. It's not about how educated you are. It's just I don't know. It's just to have a certain set of eyes. Just I don't know. I can make it work for people like that.
I'll say this. I'll say this. The initially when I started writing and started
Yeah,
writing manuscripts, one of the things that I suppose it shouldn't have shocked me, but it did shock me, was how difficult it is to get someone else to read it.
yeah.
And I've thought about it a bunch of times of I would pay, how much I would pay a person to read
Hmm.
what I was writing. And I thought, you know what? I think I'd be willing to just pay someone $50, a competent person familiar in a genre who knows what they're doing and can provide me with meaningful feedback.
Yeah.
I would very willingly pay them $50. And to that extent, it just doesn't surprise me that people send work your way. And that there's such a market for this, and that there's such a market for that sort of freelance work. And so it's interesting that you haven't, because of course you could go on Goodreads today
Yeah.
and you can book an editor for you know
A lot.
two
A
thousand
lot
three
of money.
thousand
Yeah. It's
dollars.
it's it's normally in between 1,300 to about $2,000 of what you know, normally when people come to me, I'll tell them, this is kind of the price and this is what I'm charging.
Yep.
And yeah, it's normally between 1,300 to $2,000 if I mean, that's so much money. And
Yes.
the
Yeah.
worst thing that someone can do, and I actually learned this from my first two books when I was not a particularly as skilled and experienced as I am now. The worst thing that you can do is just say, okay, well, I'm just not gonna have this edited. Then I'm just gonna put it out there because I mean, it's not like you're serving a meal or changing a tire. Like this is something that's gonna be, in print for forever. And
Yes.
to not spend a tiny bit to have some skin in the game to make sure it's as you know as uh, as effective as you know for it to be that
Yes.
thing
Well,
that you want.
I think to some extent the issue is that noticing errors can take a person out of the work.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's people who are great writers that isn't always going to translate into being a good editor. It's just
yeah,
there's no science to it. If you're not able to edit, that doesn't take away from you as a writer, because a lot of the most famous ones out there, they're not, like they pay, two or three people to clean up their work. There's no shame in being like, I could use a second set of eyes.
yeah. And as I've learned going through the process myself, a second set of eyes is imperative. A third set of eyes is even better,
Yeah,
and there's real value to having a person who knows how to approach a manuscript
yeah,
and not disrupt what the author's style is.
absolutely. The one story I always tell about why someone should have an editor. When I first got my first copy of my first paperback in 2014, I had it. I opened up, I saw a big pile of them. I opened it up. There was a mistake on the first page. I put the word trail instead of trial, and that has just been permanently burned into my brain. 11 years later, I'm like, look, you don't want to be that person to open up
No,
your book and the first page has a mistake on it. It's like, trust me, you don't want
this
that
is
experience.
absolutely brutal.
Yeah. So
Absolutely brutal.
that's the story I tell everyone. It's like you have to make sure it's yeah.
So where are you living in New Jersey?
So I live about 10 minutes away from Philadelphia. Yeah, in the suburbs of Jersey. So I could literally swim there from my house.
Oh,
Not that I
nice.
would. Not that I would, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
very close.
yeah, the Delaware River. You're gonna jump
Yeah, so
in.
you're familiar with it. Yeah, I'd come out of there with a third leg. So yeah,
Yes. No, I actually love Philly, and I've been to Camden a number of
yeah,
times. And I wrote a book about a guy who grew up in Vineland, New Jersey,
hmm
which is about
yep.
45 minutes
I know
from
exactly
there.
where it is. Yep, that's where my
Yep.
wife works. Yeah,
Oh, really?
yep.
Yeah.
Small world, man.
Yes. No, I wrote it. He was a an Italian American immigrant from the Monte Cassino area of Italy. And his dad worked for Campbell Soup in
hmm
Camden
Yep,
and was he came over, grew up in Vineland, New Jersey, in the Italian garden sort of they grew flowers and
yeah,
tomatoes and
yep,
grapes in that eastern coastal plain, as the New Jersey wine connoisseurs
yep.
refer to it. And he ended up going back and serving in World War II and got blown up by a German artillery shell
Well, yeah, that's
within view of his
Yeah.
childhood hometown, if you
Wow.
can believe it. Yes.
Well, if he would have spent enough time in Camden, he probably would have gotten blown up anyway. So,
No.
nah, it's fine. Camden's great.
I'll say this. I went to a terrific my only experience in Camden, when I go up, I go to Philly, and I actually hang out a lot in South Philly.
Yeah.
My college roommate lives in South Philly,
There you
which,
go.
by the way, for if listeners have never been to Philadelphia, Philadelphia has some of the cheapest, most delicious food on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
They
It's wow.
have incredible ethnic cuisine, and by
Yeah.
ethnic cuisine, I mean they have Italian cuisine, they have German cuisine,
Yep.
they have Jewish cuisine, they have everybody, and it is world class, and it costs half of what you would pay in New York City.
Yeah. New York's yeah, extremely expensive. It's
Yes. So you're a Jersey guy born and raised. Do
I
you
am, yeah.
have your favorite New Jersey authors?
Yes, actually, that's so awesome that you asked that. Oh wait, she's not from Jersey. I was about to say, I've been recently talking a little bit with Lisa Reagan, but she's from Philly. Jersey, I think F. Paul Wilson's from Jersey, or is he from Pennsylvania too? Man, I'm doing Jersey dirty here. There's just me. That's it. Just me.
That's just you. I thought being a sci-fi horror guy, you'd pull up George R. R. Martin,
Oh yeah. Okay.
also from Jersey. Classic.
He's from wow. Okay.
Yes, yes, and you notice it if you drive to Atlantic City because you drive, or not to Atlantic City. If you drive up to Ashbury Park,
Okay.
you drive through Freehold, New
Yeah.
Jersey, and of course the George R. R. Martin has the what's referred to as the Valerian Freehold, which is
Huh.
just comes from the town of Freehold, New
Oh,
Jersey.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
that's
no, I
my
don't
that's my George R. R. Martin, New
yeah, I'm
Jersey
trying to think of
trivia.
other authors from Jersey. Like the worst part about it is after this I'll be like, "Oh, wait, there's this one and this one." But yeah.
Yes. So who are some of your favorite authors? Who's giving you inspiration when you sit down to write?
Yeah, so there was definitely a large period and this kind of shows in a couple of the of my last four stories. I was in a big Lovecraft phase for a long time.
You're
I
just
try like
staring into the void.
yeah, like I try it's just it's so fascinating to have someone who takes things that kind of aren't typically scary, like like albino penguins that are 6 feet tall with no eyes. Like not the first thing I would think of, not the most scary thing, but kind of yeah, it's very psychologically. He really is just. I don't think he was from this planet. I just he was so odd. And I just like I'm so fascinated by him. Like I want to be studied the way people are studying and trying to be like him. That was if I could have that, I would be happy. Another one is definitely like I said, F. Paul Wilson. The first time I read that book, The Keep. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No, I've never read it. Tell me about The
Um,
Keep.
The Keep. So it's during World War II. And these German soldiers are in Romania and they have to stop at this town. And there's this giant castle that's covered in all these silver crosses. There's like 10,000 crosses or something. And yeah, it's just this horror story where there's something in the castle and it's killing all the soldiers. And um, it's just, it's, it's so good. They actually had a film like from the 80s. I think it was like maybe 81. It was very bad and cheesy if you like you can find clips of it. But yeah, he's big. I've read a lot of his books. Another one is Stephen Leather. He's actually I don't know if I'd call him a pal. I guess he's a random guy I just sent like a message on socials. And he's been he has always like responded to me. When I was trying to find an agent, he was helping me a lot. I mean, obviously I didn't find one, but he was kind of saying, like you want to try this person, you want to, check this out first. He kind of taught me a lot about the industry. He was just always there to answer all my questions. He's fantastic. Um, as far as some of the independent authors I like, there's Michelle Powers. She's incredible. I've read almost everything by her. K.M. Taylor, she's amazing. Who else? Elizabeth Blackwood. Yeah, there's. I'm kind of all over the place. I've kind of come into this phase now. I'm not sure if this is just because a large swath of the independent of the independent author community are female, but I've kind of gotten into like the female crime thriller uh type genre where the cop is like um like a main female type character. And I can't really explain why because that's not really my thing, but I've kind of gotten into a couple of these like Michelle Powers novels, and it's like they're very good. They're not super complicated, but they're not, like they're intelligent at the same time. It's hard to explain.
So this is an interesting thing because I'm obsessed with um, not just I to my mind what people read
Yeah,
because I think you and I can both agree that there are uh, ways of spending your time that are less expensive and a lot different
yeah,
and sort of have a lower threshold of attention and effort and engagement than reading these days.
absolutely.
And to my mind, the people who are excited about reading and are out there reading, I'm always interested in what drives that and why
Yeah,
they're into it and what they're looking for.
yeah,
And obviously there's the romanticy element and that sort of thing. But it's interesting that you say that you've gotten into the sort of female-led cop
yeah.
thriller.
I don't understand what happened. I just like it was like here's a free Audible code for from my friend, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I was like, wow, that was actually really awesome. Like, wow, I was impressed. I've actually been kind of tossing around the idea of creating something like that, but I- it's I have so much in my pile that is not finished. It's like, I can't start something else. I'm not a big pantser, so I don't
Oh, okay.
I've written one or two like that, but it doesn't. I don't know. I'm a planner. I'm a plotter. I'm too
Okay, so
methodical.
so tell me about this because I am a pantser.
Really?
Yes, basically see the entire story in my head,
Yeah.
and then I anguish over how best to describe it to the person that is reading it.
Yeah.
That's just how my head works.
Yeah.
It's I see what's going on, and then I'm like, okay, how do I describe this in a way that makes it engaging and that makes people want to read it? Because the way I see it is very, I'd
Yeah.
say
You can always.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
cinematography in my head.
Okay.
And so I have to sort of sit down and think about how best to present it.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested in people's outlining process. So tell me how you outline a complex story and what your process is.
Yeah. I mean, like initially, thinking up the idea always is a pantsing thing because there's no real way to plan when the idea is coming. It just, when it's there, and you have to grab it. But I am kind of the same way. I know, okay, here's point A and it'll go all the way here and, like this will happen. And at that point, I don't want to say I had it locked in, but then at that point, if I'm developing characters, when I'm through with that, I would say about three-quarters of the work is actually done without even typing a certain, like the first paragraph. And then everything else, it's I
So
wouldn't say it.
would you say that basically you're summarizing individual paragraphs as you go, or you're basically saying in this paragraph, this needs to be established. In this paragraph, this needs to be established. How do you mean that you're at three-quarters of the way? Uh,
If I pretty much if I have the characters and I have enough about those characters, like three-quarters of the journey for me is already done because I find that the characters write the story essentially themselves. If I have the point
mhm.
A and point B and kind of those things that are going to fill in, I just kind of have to, take that extra 25% and just kind of walk them through it. And everything else is just kind of, you know, okay, like at that point I'll kind of map it out by chapters and I have a strange thing where I don't like to write above chapter 30. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, but I always write in 30 chapters or less. So no matter what I have to do, to make it 30 chapters. I don't know where this came from. I don't know if I have like some childhood trauma that's like if I hit 31, man, I'm dead, but so I will have all the ideas, kind of the skeleton of the story, and then I'll find a way to put it into 30 chapters or under. But essentially kind of putting in the extra 25% is is pantsing. It's just creativity and just, throwing stuff at the wall and then fixing your mess.
I hear it. So who's the first person to read it?
Um, wow, okay. Probably either Michelle Powers, she started reading my stuff. My one friend Rob, who I grew up with, my mom, my sister, um, and then just some of my clients who, were uh, I pretty much end up on like pretty friendly terms permanently with all my clients. Not on purpose. I just, we
You do a good job. You do a good job, and they don't hate you.
they just won't leave me alone. So yeah, so they're all kind of interested in that because or, they, like will support me. But yeah, like my mom, my sister, my wife, my kids aren't really at the age where I can show them a lot of my stuff. They have read The Anteater King. Well, like we heard it on a car ride, because that's not terribly bad. It's still pretty traumatizing, but they're not really at the age. If I'm not gonna traumatize them with something like educational on the car ride, I'll traumatize them with something else. So I figured I would educate them. No, but so yeah, there's kind of like a front line of people who I could say, hey, I got this out. So I'm trying to increase that number,
Yeah.
obviously.
And who's the person? Because in my case, it's my best friend Alex Marriott, who was on the first episode, and my wife are the two people that read everything first.
Yeah.
And
Also, my neighbor, yeah, she like will read everything, and she'll always actually tell me what she thinks.
yeah,
Like when she had my first two novels, she was like, "Yeah, I didn't really care for either of those." Like, oh, she.
that's nice.
But then, like four or three through six, she's like, "Yeah, these are good." So
I think that hearing that someone doesn't like something and having them articulate why they don't
yeah,
like
yeah,
it is incredibly helpful. If they
it's
can't articulate why they
yeah.
don't like it, you're what do you got? Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
But if a person can tell me why they don't like it,
yeah,
I think that's very helpful.
it
I'm
is.
current,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. If they're constructive about it, yeah. And that's why, like I forgot to say, she also said, yeah, my like her one granddaughter who like she read them and she's like, she didn't really care for the first two either. It's like, oh, all right, just pile on. Yeah, it was like the scene in the movie Kindergarten Cop where it's like, yeah, my swimming teacher, she's better than you, and this person's better than you. So yeah.
So when do you feel like you're confident enough to put the work out into the world?
Whew, yeah, that is a good question. As someone who was not prepared and went out anyway, um, you got to have an editor. It's not fun to have something that you spend so much time on and something that you feel certain of, come back and be like, no, there's a bunch of stuff wrong with this. But
Hmm.
if you go out there, it's like, being trained for a job. If you're not ready and you go out there, like it's gonna come back to bite you. But at some point, the two things I will say is if you are doing your own editing, there's only a certain amount of times you can go through your book before you start self-sabotaging. You can
Oh yeah.
you
Oh
can over
God.
edit. You can
Oh, it's
you can end up
nightmarish.
shooting, yeah. And at some point, you really like with I mean, again, this is it's kind of cliche, but at some point you just have to take the plunge, pull the trigger, and be like, okay, I think I'm ready. And
Yeah.
there's not a lot of situations where if you're putting out consecutive novels, if you're just putting out one and then you're done, I mean, the quality, you know, isn't really here or there at that point because you published and you're done. But there's not really going to be a point where you're doing, two or three or four and you're getting consecutively less talented. Like you're only going to improve.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As long
Absolutely.
as you stay at it, learn from your mistakes, and don't repeat them if you can. And yeah, don't. I mean, imposter syndrome is always going to be a thing. Just who cares? Just you know, it's there's no real science about when the perfect time is. You just kind of have to do the best you can and take the plunge. When the time is right
Hmm.
or as close to right as you can.
Yeah. So let's talk dad stuff.
All right.
How many kids you got?
I have two. A 10-year-old son, Wade, and a 6-year-old Myra. They're awesome. I love them.
Ah, well, that's awesome.
How about you?
I have one. She's 4,
Oh boy, yeah.
and she's currently not feeling well,
Oh yeah, okay.
and her mommy's in Hawaii.
Oh,
And so I'm the worst person in the world.
yeah.
And so she is in bed. So I got that going for me.
There you-
But I am the worst person in the world.
Oh,
So
I'm
that's
sure.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
not, that's not great. That's not great. And you mentioned to me that you're very particular about making time for your kids.
Yeah, I don't want to ever I mean obviously I have to say no for certain things, but when they're,
Yes.
if I'm in the middle of working on somebody else's stuff, my stuff. I don't want to ever be like, no, I don't have time. Please leave me, or just saying no, I don't
Yeah.
have time. Um, because I mean, yeah, what I'm doing is important, and because I work a full-time job, I don't have as much time as I would like to do, these two other jobs. But I also, yeah, like job number one is being a dad and a husband, and I don't think at the end of my life when I'm, old and dying, I'll be like, man, I really wish I would have told them that, that like I needed time for this. Like I'm pretty sure
I
I
can
am making the
empathize.
right choice. I feel like. So yeah, if it's like even if it's something stupid, like I will stop. Yeah, because I don't want them to ever feel like I don't have, or he doesn't have time for me.
Yeah. So I think about this a lot because I feel like I am way more involved in my daughter's day-to-day
Yeah,
existence
it's great,
than
man.
than any father I ever saw when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
it's
Even
great.
the most involved. I think that and I assume you're a millennial like myself.
Yeah, I'm 43.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're an analog millennial.
I'm a high-end millennial.
Yeah, yeah. On the high sector.
That's right.
And to that extent, I think that like when we were kids, our parents were working probably 7:30 in the morning to 6 at night, and we never saw them, which I think was probably good for us in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
but
we
also
developed. Yeah,
challenging,
yeah,
challenging. So one of these things, and I talked with a previous guest about this, is the sports, the young sports complex,
yeah,
and how many teams and how many coaches and how many games. And man, I cannot wrap my mind around it. I can't wrap my mind around it. It's
yeah,
it's it's like the idea that if I would have told my parents when I was 11 through 13, yeah, I need a ride to another state and we're gonna need to stay in a hotel room over the
yeah.
weekend so that I could play basketball against a bunch of people that I'm never gonna see again, for a team that's made up and run
And they're
by,
not paying us.
and they're not paying us, and it's run by a guy who lives down the street, and we're gonna have to pay for all the food, and you're gonna have to be there with me for 8 hours. Do you, my parents would have looked at me like
Yeah,
I was
no.
an idiot.
Yeah,
There,
no.
there, there, there's no way, there's no way
Yeah.
that would have occurred. And the other side of this is that, I have a 4-year-old, and I just know my wife's gonna make me do that.
Oh, it's coming, huh?
I just know that that's going to be it. Do
Yeah.
you have a similar situation, or are
M-
you lucky and your kids are just nerds that want to play video games?
I'm actually pretty fortunate. Yeah, my son, he played t-ball at like 4, and it became clear like it's like I don't think he's gonna be a sports guy. Like we
Yeah,
still tried soccer, and basketball, and it's just like I see that he was doing the same thing I was out there, just screwing around, having fun, and
yeah,
because I wanted to just be at home, playing Sega or Super Nintendo,
yeah.
and so it's like I'm not going to force him, but at the same time, he does need something physical. So we actually did karate with him, and
There you go.
that helped him like a lot. And I ended up selling like about two or three of my novels to his karate teacher, which was cool too.
It's a win. That's
Yeah,
what we call a win-win.
yeah. So he was kind of like like I was like, look, you have to have something physical. Like I can't just have you, for 12 hours a day, just sitting home playing on the Switch. Like you got
Yeah,
to go out and do something. So after basically forcing him to play two or three sports for a season, and then like kind of putting him through karate, he's able to kind of police himself. Like he's like, hey, I'm gonna go out, shoot some hoops. I'm gonna go ride my bike. I mean, obviously not in the capacity that you and I probably did as
yeah.
kids, But yeah, I
Well,
don't
yeah,
have.
we didn't have a Switch. We had a
Yeah,
Game Boy
that's
at
right.
best, and that thing
Yeah,
would
you couldn't
burn
play it in the
out your
sunlight
retinas.
because you couldn't
Yeah.
see it. Yeah. But yeah, so he kind of, yeah, he's just kind of chills at home. My daughter does gymnastics, which is once a week, and it's for like an hour. But I think she's gonna be more of the artistic type too, because she's always like drawing and playing my piano. I have a bunch of instruments and stuff down here. I used to be a musician a long time ago. Um, and she's very expressive, and so I think I don't have any sports kids. I don't think. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yes, we had this. My wife and I had this conversation very early on,
Yeah.
where we're like, "Oh man, we get so lucky. We'll just have like a music kid
Yeah.
or like a
A video
basement
game.
video
Yep.
game kid,
Yep.
and we will have so much time on our hands when they
Yeah.
can just self-manage themselves."
Yep.
And then we immediately blew it by having dance class, this
I did that
dance
one too. Yeah.
class.
My daughter
We
hated it
got,
though. I was lucky.
yeah, we got we got soccer.
Uh-huh.
We've got swim twice a week, and
Phew.
it seems like that there's gonna be another thing. I can
Yeah.
already tell my wife is gonna come back from being in Hawaii, and she's going to decide that our daughter needs to learn fire dancing,
Yeah. Sword fighting or something.
or yeah, or hula, poi cooking, or
Yeah.
something,
Something
yeah,
expensive and time
something
consuming.
expensive and time consuming. And, and the other side of this, of course, is that my wife was so thrilled because I've had hobbies, I think we all have hobbies.
Yeah.
Because I live in the burbs, and my wife was so thrilled when I took up writing.
Yeah.
And then she learned how expensive editing is and self-publishing is. And she was like, this was supposed to be an inexpensive hobby. You weren't supposed to want to spend money on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But I think this is how I think of it. The value of a person's labor, like what their hourly wage is, when you think about it, like to make it worth a person's while, you have to be able to put up um, a sum that convinces them that their time wouldn't be best served working on their own stuff, playing a musical instrument or practicing a musical instrument, relaxing, or just sleeping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the editor thing, I think I just sort of understand it. I understand it as a reasonable cost
Yeah.
when you
It's a
consider
necessary
the
evil.
yes, yeah, when you consider the amount of effort that goes into it. And
Yep.
the alternative is obviously that I make myself available to other people to exchange beta reading.
Hmm.
And to that extent, you do that and you make yourself available. But that isn't editing.
No, it's
That's
not.
it's a completely different game.
Yeah,
And
it's hope in it like and you don't want hope to be your strategy. If that's I mean, I know people if that's how you want to make it work, like
yeah,
it's hope. It's not a I mean, hope can work, but it's hope. Yeah.
yes. So where did the name Six Doom Literary come from?
Yes. So in the first of the book of Deathly Anagrams, a third of Infinity, the main character's name is or his surname is that. So I was trying to come up with something else, but it's just like I don't want something super edgy. It's like I don't want something super plain, and I was just like, well, I had this character with this cool last name from. It's like let me just try that, and that was it. Yeah.
Do you have trouble coming up with names?
No, no. Nope. Part of the reason I have such a large pile of things I haven't finished is because I'm constantly coming up with these characters. I'm just all over the place with these characters, and yeah, no characters and you know place names and yeah stuff like that. Now that stuff just comes to me. I don't really know why.
Yes, you see, I'm also hobbled because I have parrots, and one of my parrots ate the J key off my keyboard. And as a result, I try not to have characters whose names start with or include J's.
It's just a bunch of eyes.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of I's. Yes, Jehovah.
That's an
Yes,
interesting challenge, though.
Jehovah.
It's like, yeah, I wrote this and I had no J key. It's like,
And I had no J key.
man,
Yes, so
that's a power move.
all of my books, all of my manuscripts are written with effectively without the use of a J key,
Oh
which
God,
is surprisingly not a difficult thing to fix.
yeah,
But you don't get a lot of Johns,
yeah.
not a lot
Well,
of Johns. Not a lot of joys. It's a little safer with everything. I think it still does work, but it's split in half, and
the parrot had its way with it. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
and I I've considered getting it fixed, but I think that if I ever become a successful author, it's just going to be a fun, it'll be that fun story that I get to tell. Is that well, why would you put me in the book? I don't know. Is your name begin with a J? If so, unfortunately, my parrot made that inconvenient, so I
It's like
don't
you
get
should
to do
have
that anymore.
some kind of tale where the parrot kills all the characters whose names start with J.
Yes,
The parrot
who are
murder book.
set upon, who are set upon the J. And by the way, the J key is not even a particularly convenient key if you look at your keyboard.
It's like right in the yeah.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. He's somehow skipped over zillions of other keys to get to the J key.
Yep.
It's just a funny anecdote
Yeah, you have to hang
about
on to that if you ever make it. It'll be in like a museum or something.
yeah, yeah, my my really crummy Hewlett Packard computer with a missing J key.
Priceless, man.
Priceless artifact in the Smithsonian. So let's do your stuff. Give me where I can get your books, what the titles of the books are, and also if I need editing services, how do I get in touch with you?
Yeah, my novels are all on all the normal places, Amazon. I have one that's on YouTube for free, A Third of Infinity. If you search it up on there, it's only 2 hours long. It's short. It's kind of something to, ensnare people to hopefully become a fan. The Anteater King is available in the audio format and the ebook format. Like all my stuff is on Kindle Unlimited. Priori, same thing. And the Doral song is actually available in like a hard copy. I just wasn't printing hard copies for a while. So yeah, they're all there. I'm on some of like the apps like Hoopla and some of the other library apps. I'm on Audible. Yeah, if you want I mean, I'm kind of tied up through the summer with editing, but you can always find me on all the socials, on Twitter, like on X, TikTok, Facebook. Yeah, you can always get in touch with me there. Like I answer, you know, like almost all the messages on there. So yeah, you can find me on there.
And that's at Six Doom Literary.
Yep. Yeah, it's the
Okay,
same.
great.
And then on Facebook and TikTok, it's just my name. I have a YouTube channel too, but it's like the one platform I can't seem to get up and running. So I have like 27 followers or something. So, but I mean, like I can be found on there as well. So yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of all like on all the socials. I'm extremely easy to find.
Well, awesome. That's William Burkhardt. Or is the J
Yeah. Yep.
on the books? So that's
Yes.
yes, that's William J. Burkhardt.
Yep.
Look him up for all your editing needs and check out his many and varied books, which sound like they're pretty quick reads, the type of thing that you could get knocked out on a
Yep.
bus from Baltimore to Philadelphia.
Yeah, in between about 20 to 70,000. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good number.
Yep.
In a more civilized age,
Yeah.
they used to print those.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I know all about it. I know all about it. The
Oh man.
size, the size. Well, thank you so much. This has been Dan Roberts. This is the Dadlet Pod. All the best.